You're listening to Operation Self Reset, the truth of extra effort. What is going on, you freaking awesome people? Welcome back to Operation Self Reset. My name is Jake Naraki, coming to you live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where each and every week we dive into a different topic in the world of personal development. Today we're going to be talking about the truth of extra effort. Now, unfortunately, and probably benefits you, we don't have a sponsor for today's show, but I want to sponsor you guys in saying thank you for your time, curiosity, and of course, your commitment to improving thyself. The only way to become better is to be better. And to be better, you need to educate yourself with the right material, the right people, and the right things that can hold you accountable, and most importantly, keep you on the path towards your awesomeness. Now, with that awesomeness, I want to share one thing that I haven't done in the last couple episodes, and that is reminding you and myself that we are freaking awesome. I do this weird thing called the awesome sauce. It's where you scream at the top of your lungs, "I'm freaking awesome." You do this as a way of identifying the greatness that you personally have, but yet you choose not to share it. And why is that? Is because we are in the society of having everything be perfect. We want our clothes to be perfect. We want our hair to be perfect. We want our makeup to be perfect. We want to have the perfect cars and the perfect life and the perfect job and all those different types of things. But we're anything but perfect. And when we start to rate and gauge ourselves against others that are on social media, in the world, our cohorts, individuals that are making big strides in technology and their career, we start to feel diminished. We don't feel like a individual that's ready to go into battle, a battle against ourselves, a battle against life, a battle against what we feel is what we're fighting for every single day. And the awesome sauce is nothing more than to remind you and myself that we have more to give, more to be, more to do, and of course, more to thrive and strive for every single day. So the awesome sauce is really simple. You just stand in a position of power. A position of power is pushing your shoulders back, your chest out front, your arms overhead. If you want to hear some great research in the world of positions of power, listen to Amy Cuddy's TED Talk. It will blow your mind. But it's nothing more than just kind of standing up straight. SUS, as my dad used to say. If you need a mental example, think of the military. They're not standing there at attention with their shoulders rolled. They're, looking down at the ground. Their chest is out. Their shoulders are back. Their chins are up. They're looking, loud and proud. They're looking good. They're feeling good. And that's the same way I want you guys to feel in this moment right here. So join me by screaming, "I'm freaking awesome." Put your hands over your head, put your thumbs out, your pinkies out, spirit fingers, whatever you got to do, and we're going to scream, "I'm freaking awesome." Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I'm freaking awesome! Woo! Yes! It sounds ridiculous. It sounds silly, and it is, because it is something that you probably never do. It's something that you get energized when you hear a good song, or you're watching an inspirational movie and you kind of get into it, right? You kind of perk up a little bit. But why not do that on demand? This is something that's free. It's easy to do. There's no cost to you. All it takes is literally 20 seconds. You can do it in the privacy of your own home, your own car, even a bathroom stall if you have nowhere else to do it. But I appreciate you guys for joining me. You would not believe the amount of emails that I receive from individuals that just can't do it. You may be thinking to yourself, it sounds silly, stupid, dumb, whatever. I get it. I totally do. I even to this day, doing it multiple years, it still is kind of silly in a way. You may be a professional. You may have this quote-unquote high criteria, but what lies within you is still that little boy or little girl. What lies inside of you is still the same fears and uncertainty that you had when you were a little kid. I remember when I was growing up, and I remember talking to my mom, and I said, "Mom, I can't wait to see what I think when I'm older." I was obsessed with knowing what was I going to know when I was older. And my mom said, probably the most truthful statement she said out of all of her wisdom was that what you're thinking right now is pretty much the way that you're going to be seeing the world later. And I didn't believe it, but I still have the same type of little fears, the same uncertainty, the same jealousy, or the same, rating myself against others. It has died down, it has depleted, but it's not fully gone. We have a cottage up in Lake Michigan, up in Door County, it's called. It's the Peninsula of Wisconsin. That's where I'm from. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin here. And when we go skiing or tubing and I wipe out and I'm sitting there in the water by myself, I am still scared that fish are going to be swimming up and biting my toes and nipping at me, even though I've never had that experience. But somebody told me when I was a little kid, when I jumped off the pier, to be careful of the fish because they'll want to, taste my toes. I think they were joking around, but that still has stuck to me. Now, does that fear or that idea not allow me to jump in the water? No, I still go in the water. I still have a great time. But is it something I think about? Of course. It sounds silly, but the way that you thought when you're a child is the way that you're kind of thinking now. And so even though you may think you're high-end toity and you got things together and you got a glamorous job and all that stuff, you still have the same insecurities. You still have the same doubts. You still have the same what-if scenarios playing in your head. And by doing the awesome sauce, it reconnects to that little boy, little girl internally to let you know that, you know what, you are pretty cool. You know what, you still got your stuff together. You know what, you are designed specifically and exactly the way that you're supposed to. And it's nothing more than a reference point, an idea for us to lean on in those moments when things aren't going right. Now, today's episode isn't really designed to go in length with many examples. It's not designed to wow you with very technical or scientific ideas in the way of how our brain operates or the way that our eyes view the world, which registers different neurons firing within the body itself. Today's episode is a shorty. It's a oldie, or it's a shorty, but a good one. I was going to say it's going to be an oldie, but a good one. But the truth is, extra effort is really hard. And I wish there was an easier way to say this. And I wish there was a really good example that could hit it home for you. And I'm going to try my best to incorporate a couple examples that could relate that message to you. But I want you to look at your life right now as kind of a horizontal line. Where you're at right now, it doesn't matter if you're riding high on a success story, if you're running low on bad decisions. Where you're at is your horizontal line of where you are right now. And that line is kind of consistent. It's like the stock market. It kind of goes up, it goes down, but overall it kind of like a heart rate. It spikes and then it drops. It spikes, it drops, flatline, spikes, drops, flatlines, and so on and so forth. And for you, it may spike, 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 flatline, spike, drop. For others, it may drop, 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 flatline, drop, and then spike here and there. But regardless, we have this baseline, and that baseline is your constant life level. Your constant life level. All of us have it. We kind of go and bounce in between the ceiling and the floor of where we're at. But to get beyond that ceiling, we need to dive into the world of extra effort. To fall below that floor, in my example of the space of where we're at, we have the ceiling of this room and then we have the floor of this room. And when we start to get below that floor, that is called the cockpit syndrome, I personally believe. The cockpit syndrome is nothing more than understanding that we made some bad decisions. And we're in control of this airplane, aka our lives, but for some odd reason, we get distracted by our plummet. We get distracted by what happened, and instead of pulling up or pressing the buttons to level out or to activate the automatic kind of driving of that airplane, we get kind of fixated on the plummet. And we know we have the ability to pull ourselves out of it. We know that we have the stick or the handle to pull up and to get out of that situation. We know we have the resources via a microphone to talk to, air control to help us out of that funk. We have the buttons and technology around us to get us out of that plummet. But yet, for some other reason, we get fixated on the plummet. We get fixated on the fall, and that's why I call it the cockpit syndrome. And it's one of those things that we know what we're doing. We know it's not good, but for some odd reason, we just like to watch it until there is that moment of kind of spark of that little snap of the fingers, and we go, oh boy, it's time. It's time to pull up. It's time to get out of this funk, and we get back to our constant level of living, which is in between that ceiling and the floor. Now, today I'm not going to be talking about so much the floor and the cockpit syndrome, but I hope you kind of grasp the idea of, yeah, I mean, there are times when we're falling out of control. We know we can pull up. We know we can get better. We know we can save a marriage. We know we can save a job. We know we can reach that level of success, but we don't. And we plummet and we fall until there's that moment that we realize we got to get the heck out of Dodge, get out of there, pull up, and to get back to our normal level of living. But for the individuals and for the obvious notion of this podcast, we're going to be talking about that extra effort. And that extra effort allows us to get outside of the ceiling. The ceiling is tough to bypass. The ceiling is a comfort zone. To get through that ceiling, you need to work at it. You need to get literally a hammer and a crowbar, and you need to keep on chipping away at that plaster and lath, that drywall, that insulation, and to keep on moving past that. And the only way to move past that ceiling is that cause of extra effort, to put in what other people are not willing to put in. Now, the unique thing about that classic, iconic quote of doing something what other people won't be willing to do, or be willing to go the extra mile than what others would do, so on and so forth, you're basically competing against other people. And in the world where I live in, is that it's not so much competing against other people, you're competing against yourself. And that extra effort really lies within understanding that if you want to get through that ceiling, if you want to get out the hammer, the crowbar, if you want to get dirty, and you know you're willing to stand there and to hit that wall a couple of times, maybe for 10, 20 hour long, minutes, hours, days, weeks, whatever, you're willing to get through it, you will get through it. But also to understand that once you do get through that ceiling, that you also have the ability to fall back through. And here's the truth of extra effort. This is the truth. This is what you are listening for. This is the message that has been, kind of rattling your brain. The truth is, extra effort is really hard. It's absolutely, maybe, positively, the hardest thing that you will do or encounter in your life. Extra effort is not one of those things that it's like, oh, today I'm going to stay after work and I'm going to finish that report. Extra effort is a day-by-day kind of thing. It doesn't slow down. It's a consistent. If you want to reach consistent success, if you want to move that constant level of living, you need to have that consistent extra effort. The problem is people choose to dial in and to do that extra effort, and they'll stay late, they'll wake up early, they'll start on the workout routine. They'll start meeting with individuals that will help them become quote-unquote successful. They'll start reading the books, listening to podcasts. But the problem is that extra level of effort is tiring. It's exhausting. It's hard. It drains you. It takes away other luxurious things that you do in your life. And the problem is, and the certainty is, a lot of people won't continue with it. They'll fall back through that ceiling of their consistent level of living, and they'll fall back into that room, and they'll bounce between that floor and that ceiling until they get the motivation, until they see that cockpit syndrome, and they go, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. And they'll have that extra energy, that extra lift to pull them out of that funk, to break through that floor, to get back in the room, and to shoot for that ceiling. And that's where maybe you are right now. You're here looking for some motivation. You're here to get a little words of wisdom. You're here to kind of go the aha. And the truth is, it's not easy. The truth is that even the people that look like they have it all together, they're battling with extra effort every single day. Are there times that I don't feel like doing this podcast? Yes. Are there times that I feel like quitting? Yes. Are there times that I want to call in sick to work? Yes. Are there times that I want to give up, teaching my children how to do different types of things? Yes. Is there times that I want to stop reading and just watch Netflix for hours on end? Yes. Are there times that I want to look at websites that make no sense, that are just full of junk, just because Of course. Are there times that I shortchange myself on my work because I just want to get out of there and I don't want to talk to anybody and I just want to do my own thing? Yes. Are there times that I go to the gym and I just lay there and I walk around and I check email as opposed to working out? Yes. And so the question is, how honest are you with yourself? Number one. Because if you're not honest, you're lying. And all of us lie on a regular basis. We lie about what we're doing. We lie on our social media. We lie to our friends. We lie to our family. And most importantly, and the person that probably gets hurt the most is that we lie to ourselves. We lie that we're something else bigger than we are. We lie that we have it together. We lie that tomorrow I'm going to be organized. We lie that tomorrow I'm going to go wake up early and go work out and just have a green smoothie as opposed to my normal sugar cereal. We lie because we know that it's not going to be long term. And there we are. We break through the ceiling. We put in the extra effort. But we realize to stay above that ceiling, we need to kind of build that next room. And to build that next room, a lot of us don't even know where to start. We don't know how to build the walls. We don't know where to get the material. We don't even know what we're doing. And so what happens is we fall back through that ceiling. Now the question is, how do those people break through that ceiling and start to build that next room? They figure it out. They have the want, the drive, the determination to figure it out. And so, for you, maybe you're at that point right now, you're at the ceiling of your own personal room, and you're starting to chip away at it. What does it take to get through that ceiling? It's very simple. Extra effort, we understand that. But in an example form, it's 1 degree. 1 degree. I want you to think back into your history lessons of the turn of the century. The big boom in manufacturing. That was all caused by steam power. Locomotives ran on steam. Boats ran on steam. That was one of the largest technical advantages of the world at that time, back in the 1900s, when steam power became something. People could manufacture at large levels. People could travel the world due to steam engines. People could pull huge amounts of weights across the country, across the world, because of steam power. But the question is, what needs to happen to create steam? You obviously need to have water that is compressed, but before it's compressed, it needs to boil. And what is the temperature that it takes right now to boil water? 212 degrees. Now, all of us understand that at times we get ourselves riled up, we get motivated, we get energized to the 200-degree level. But are we really breaking through? Is that where the extra effort is? No. A lot of us get fired up and we move and we think we're really cooking with steam here, right? But we're only at 210 degrees. But to really make that impact, to really break through the ceiling, to really create that extra effort, we need that 1 more degree, the 212 degrees. When you are at 212 degrees, the water will boil, which will generate pressure, which will allow locomotives, steam engines to generate, to create massive world impact. And so the question is for you, when you get fired up, when you get motivated, when you get energized, what temperature are you at? What temperature do you peg out at? For some, 200 is really high. For others, it's 210. And then for the people that are making the difference, for the people that are absolutely making an impact, they are at the 212 degrees. Now, the crazy part is that you may see individuals out there that are at 275 degrees. They're at 400 degrees. But it doesn't matter how hot they are. All that matters is that they surpassed 212. Just because you're at 400 degrees doesn't mean that it will boil any hotter. The water will still boil at 212 degrees, which is very interesting. The hardest part is staying at the 212 degrees. So the analogy and the idea behind this is this. that when you finally do break it through to that 212 degrees, instead of pushing yourself to 300 and burning out and then falling back down to 190, is to stay above 212 degrees. Shoot for the 215 or 20 degree mark so you can have that extra effort to build that next room, to build that next level, to figure it out, to have that energy to allow you to figure it out. So, extra effort is really hard. Nobody ever feels like staying in that next room of building that next room with extra energy, extra effort. It's really hard to do. But there's two things that are consistent in every single person's life. From, I would say, pretty much the day you're born until the day you die, for anybody from any continent, any region, any background, any skin color, religion, gender, it doesn't matter. The two things that are consistent in every single person's life is this. Number one is gravity. Gravity affects anybody and everybody no matter where they are in the world. The second is self-talk. It's consistent. We all do it. We all analyze ourselves. We all talk to ourselves. We all make decisions internally. We have internal chatter every single day. The best thing you can do, obviously, is talk to yourself. But the most important thing that you can do to that internal chatter is to decipher from the stuff that you're talking about, which is good, compared to the stuff that you're talking about, which is bad. The problem is, when you're just talking to yourself, it's hard to decipher which is the good stuff and which is the bad stuff. And so an example of the bad stuff that sometimes get blown out of proportion. Have you ever had an argument with somebody and it really just blew out of control? It was something really small that you made into this big, massive ordeal. Did you know that when fog sets into a city, when fog falls upon a city, they say a rough estimate of 7 city blocks, and if the fog was 100 feet deep, that fog, if you were to condense it into one glass of water, it wouldn't even fit in that standard 12-ounce glass. That the water that is dispersed into fog, if you were to compress it and to squeeze it into one glass, it would barely fit into, or it would fit into, with space to spare, into a 12-ounce glass of water. And when the self-talk happens to us, we create small problems and we turn it into fog. We let it mask huge chunks of our life. We let it mask our brain. We let it mask our personality. We let it mask so many different parts. And so the hard part is how you decipher what's good and what's bad, especially when you're talking to yourself. That's why experts, that's why CEOs, that's why mega individuals that are making impacts in the world, what do they do on a regular basis? Number one, they input great things into their brain. They don't listen to junk. They provide themselves with some amazing content that's educational, that keeps them thinking, that keeps them analyzing the world from an external point of view. Because if you start to analyze the world, start to listen to good stories, you won't be thinking about yourself. You'll be thinking and learning about other things, other problems, and how you would decipher that. So it takes your mind outside of that space. The second thing is what these individuals do. They surround themselves with good people that can create good conversations. And from those good conversations can create good self-talk after those conversations. Because after the people leave the dinner, after you leave the party, who are you stuck with? Brushing your teeth, showering, going to the restroom, what have you, yourself. And in those moments, that's where really the determination and the wisdom comes from great conversations from actual physical people. And then the second is from that great material you're sticking into your brain. So this is not designed to be a podcast for the next 15 hours on where extra effort comes from, how do we get there, and things like that. You know the extra effort you need to put into your life. You know the areas where you're really falling below the floor and you have that cockpit syndrome. You know where your ceiling is at currently. How do you break through it? You need that extra effort. How do you create that extra effort? You need to do what people do to break through, and that is get the right tools, get the right energy, and get the right mentality to help you break through that ceiling. But understand when you do break through that ceiling that you're now entering into a new space where it's unfinished, where there's nothing there, and you're going to need to work to build your shelter if you want to stay in that new space, if you want to stay into a higher regard of success, if you want to stay in a higher regard to your marriage, to your health, to your finances, to your job, to your business, to the way that you look at yourself, your self-confidence, to the way you manage your time, to the way that you manage your overall well-being. You need to invest in building that new space. Some people don't, and so they fall back into where they're currently at. But for you, because you listen to this show and other great shows out there, I know you have that ability to build. All of us are designed as human creatures to be thinkers, to be visionaries. And with that, we're given hands to create things. Go out there and create that extra effort for you in whatever space that you feel necessary. Don't have that cockpit syndrome and go out there and do great things with that extra effort. But the truth of it is that it's hard, it's draining, it's distracting, and lastly, you're going to have to give up things to keep that foot on the gas for that extra effort. And if you fall down, that's all right. You can get back up and you can try it again. But if you're really determined to changing, if you're really determined in getting better, if you really are, you need to make sure that you are willing to build. And to build, you need to have the right tools. You got to have the right energy. And you got to go into that knowing that you need to do things that you don't know how to do yet. But yet is one of the most powerful words that you can say. Because even though you're not there yet, you will be. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys. Do something awesome this week. Share a little bit of awesomeness to somebody else. And we'll talk to you next week, Wednesday, for another great episode of Operation Self Reset. We'll see you. Thanks.